Hey, so recently someone in the comments was nice enough, Gary, to say that they thought that my long range desert stuff looked cool and could I maybe show it off a bit? Of course I can. Here it is. So this is my long range desert group, what I have right now. The trouble for me was that I was dead set on building desert Brits, right? So everything in my British Army had to fit into that theme, which meant that I even built an LVT to go into the desert. Um, so everything always had to be deserty. So at a point, I wanted to have to field some commandos or some SAS. So I was like, okay, maybe I should do a few infantry. So this is the infantry that I built. These are all Pyrrha miniatures with small modifications. So, for instance, this guy here, right? This guy got a pistol instead of whatever he was holding. So I just basically cut off his hand and glued a pistol on it. I also glued a spare Tommy gun to his back and gave him a strap for that. That's just a piece of paper basically that I wrapped around him and glued on. So, and this is because they're basically just paraminis, but I wanted them to look a little bit more special. I wanted them to have new poses compared to the regular Tommies I had in the rest of my army. So I went and changed up everything a little bit. This one had a little bit more modification. I took a Tommy gun, a submachine gun, and repositioned into his arm. It's not the best reposition I've ever done, but it sort of works. It looks like he's firing it one-handed, Mexican style. One other thing I did was I looked through my bunch of plastics and decided, well, I'm gonna give them some different backpacks, right? So this is definitely not a British backpack. This is something else. I'm not even sure if this is American or whatever it is. Someone in the comments can tell me. But I picked up stuff and glued it on because I wanted them to look a little bit different. So this guy, for instance, I think they're American submachine gun ammunition pouches or something like that. I even glued on a couple of, if you can see it, a couple of hand grenades. So I basically raided the stocks I had of little bits, and this included something very strange and I really like doing this. I raided my ancients, my Napoleonics, my pike and musket, and in that group I found this little cap here, and gave one of them that on because it looks like a little warming cap that he brought from home or whatever. I also gave him, and this here is a Greek short sword that I'm using as a dagger here or a knife. It's a little big, but no one notices once they're on the table. So I just cut off his hand and stuck that in. So small modifications, American backpacks, or something to make them stand out a little bit more. And then I had my long range desert group or my SAS or my commandos or whatever these guys are going to be at some point. This one was the first thing I built for my long range desert. This was all through V2. This was my double machine gun airborne recce jeep. So, and I knew always that I wanted to be able to use these jeeps. I bought 3 in a pack and then got a bunch more later on. But the initial 3, I knew I wanted them to be able to have machine guns, different types of machine guns potentially, or even no machine guns, just be transports. So of course I magnetized the machine guns. So I have a couple of these double machine guns. I never really needed more than 2. And the driver here is just a is that a Rubicon driver, I think, for Jeeps. Yeah, I think it's a Rubicon driver. Anyhow, so that is the Jeep, and that was the first thing I built. Then at one point I needed a Bren carrier to go in my Force, and I at that point I was fed up with painting deserty yellows, so I built this, and this actually has one of the crew can be taken out and repositioned if I want to. This is my long range desert group Bren carrier. So I glued a bunch of stowage on this, because the long range desert group was famous for going into the desert with extra ammo and extra fuel. I also knew this is another Rubicon crewman for something. I'm not sure what that is, and maybe it was one of the Jeeps or whatever. And I just repositioned him slightly, gave him some arms from my Perry Miniatures set, and then glued it on as if it was the pintle-mounted Bren gun. This guy down here is another Rubicon model, again with some Perry Miniatures arms and a Perry Miniatures head. And I wanted to paint him in a different color, so I painted him blue, like he's from the Navy and has joined the SAS. The driver, I gave him an Afghan Wargames Atlantic Afghan head with the turban and stuff, so that he's wrapped up against the desert dust that's everywhere. I even put a lot of stowage inside the Bren carrier as well. It's not my finest paint job, but at least it was nice to paint something other than just sandy yellows and get some blues in there as well. Then at one point I figured out I wanted to field a bunch of the early war motorcycles. These I don't think I'm going to use through V3, but you never know. So I had them 3D printed. And this is the result. However, when I got the 3D print, they looked like this. They had no driver. So the 3D print itself was lovely. It's a lovely motorcycle. They had no driver, they had no weapons. And I knew I wanted to field them using an LMG most of the time, so I cut out a bunch of LMGs from the extra sprues I had, magnetized them, and ding! So I can potentially change these up if I want to at some point. Then I wanted drivers, because a lot of people were mocking me for not having anyone to drive my motorcycles, which totally fair. So what I did was I took a bunch of American bodies. These bodies here are American, because I wanted them to be a little more wrapped up than the rest of the desert guys. And the legs were bendy for the American. So this is just a Warlord Games American body. Painted up a little bit darker, like he has a motorcycle's leather jacket or something on. And then the head is put on with a bit of putty. The head, by the way, is a Wargames Atlantic Partisan, as is the arm with the Sten gun. But, you know, Sten guns, British guns, so perfectly fine. And I put a bit of putty in between, and that putty, once it hardened out, I painted up white so it looks like a scarf. That took care of the neck that didn't really fit. And I did this with all my bicycles, all my motorcycles here. Every single one of them has got an American driving it with some British parts. This one has a British pistol that I again found in my Partisans, and a head that was from this. I think is one of the heads for some crew, for tanks, a tanker crew head. I had a few left over. I cut one off and glued it on. Looks really nice. This guy here is also an American body. He's got the bendy legs. He's grabbing. The most difficult part for me here was to have at least one arm grabbing the steering wheel of the motorcycle. The other arm he can, wave about as he wants to. But I knew I wanted at least one arm to grab the motorcycle, like they were driving. Again, I have the head here of crewman. Looks like he has a motorcycle leather cap on. I emphasized the glasses a little bit with some blues and grays and whites just to make sure that they popped. More or less the same technique that I've used on this lamp headlight at the front here. And then this guy, Blondie, who clearly has hero complexes. Look at that hairdo. This one was the only one where I got both arms to grab the steering wheel. I'm really happy about that. Again, it's an American body. It's an Wargames Atlantic head. The arms are Wargames Atlantics mostly, and then a couple of the hands had to be repositioned. So as I cut off a lot of hands that had open, grips and put them on. And yeah, I ended up actually getting him to grip. So that is my long-range desert group, or my recon bits for my desert Brits. One of the strange things that I found out I enjoy is cutting up plastic and repositioning it and putting it together with different sets from different manufacturers. I really enjoy that. It's a great part of the hobby, kit bashing. So yeah. That's what it looks like. My long-range desert Brits. See you next time. Cheers.